sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Ryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
You are now listening to Open Season. Your host, Billy
Hello, hello, hello. It's another Tuesday, and you're sitting here watching Open Season. I'm Billy Allen, your host, and we sit Justin Elaine, Alex Tordai, and Frankie Bradica, and we have a lot to toss around tonight. The Pats played the Chiefs last night, and it didn't look great. Cam Newton, he's got COVID, and our backups look pretty bad. We'll be reviewing the rest of Week 4 in the NFL. Bill O'Brien got canned by the Texans. Tom Brady was looking like vintage TB12 in Tampa. We'll also touch on the NBA Finals. We'll get into Jimmy Butler's historic Game 3 performance, and we'll talk about the guys, what we think will happen in Game 4. But first, we have on the line, you can hear him on 98.5, the Sports Hub. You can hear him on the Over Under podcast. He has his own as well, the Just Sitting Here podcast. We have Joe Murray on the line. Joe Murray, hello, sir. How are you tonight?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're happy you could join. We really appreciate you calling in. And, Joe, it was a tough game for the Patriots in a game Pats fans really aren't used to. A couple turnovers. You had a backup and third-string quarterback. I thought Damian Harris ran well. And I thought that Belichick holding Mahomes to a third game without a TD in the first half was pretty nice. What positives, if any, are you taking away from last night's game, Joe?
I guess the positives for me, you mentioned Damian Harris off the bat. He ran well, and this is a kid at Alabama that played behind Brandon Jacobs, who was the Rookie of the Year last year. And I thought he ran pretty hard. He shows that he can catch the football out of the backfield. So that's someone that they got going. Another thing is their offensive line. Illuminor left the game with a migraine. They moved Ferns to center. They put Nwinu back in. They had Heron playing there. They were moving guys all over the place on the offensive line, but they continued to keep that running game going. So that was two positives. And one other positive for me in general was Stephon Gilmore. He's given up a couple of big plays downfield this year. I thought he played well. He punched out that fumble at one point in that game. So I thought overall he looked pretty good. Those are my really three positives on the day. But you mentioned the game plan. It worked out. They just needed a quarterback that wouldn't make mistakes. And unfortunately, they beat themselves yesterday. And I think that's the first time in a long time we've watched a Patriots game where they truly beat themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go into that, you mentioned a quarterback that, wouldn't make them beat themselves. I guess we'll put it this way. Would the Pats have won with Cam?
Probably.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in hindsight, probably. The more I look at it here, is it was a 3-point game going into the fourth quarter. They scored 16 points late. I know one was a pick six off of Julian Edelman's hands, another drop. And then they threw another interception later on in that one. I think the game plan was good enough to win that game. You had them against the ropes, and you let them off the hook. Long story short, I think they do. But question now is, who's your quarterback going forward this weekend if Cam Newton's not cleared for the protocol?
Yeah, and I guess that's my next question for you, Joe. You went right into it. I mean, if you're the Pats, who are you starting this weekend?
All right. So I think Hoyer sucks. That's my own opinion. I'm not sure if Stidham's ready yet. Here's what I'm willing to give Hoyer a pass on. So I worked post-game last night, and I was working with Greg Bedard, and he had a chance to talk with Brian Hoyer. Hoyer didn't want to make the excuse that he found out on Saturday he was starting. He wasn't ready, guys. He wasn't ready. He made bad mistakes. He tried to force things. He couldn't throw with any accuracy. When he finally did, he started, thinking that he had legs. He didn't. I think if he was prepared for a full week, knowing what he had to do with a little bit more time, I think he would have been better. He still stinks, but I still think that he would have been better. And I don't know if this is a long-term thing for Cam. Do you want to go with Hoyer long-term, or do you think Stidham maybe should get a full week, get a full bye week, and if Cam's not ready to go, you have him playing after the bye as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, obviously you have a successful podcast, the Over Under podcast, that I'd say we all tune into. What are some of the biggest trends you're riding so far this year in the NFL? Is there anything like pound the over, or I heard you this weekend kind of filling in for on Sunday, and you seemed pretty happy when Brady had the pick six. You were taking the over in that one. Is there anything that you're kind of riding so far through the first quarter of the year as a must-have?
Overs are crushing in the NFL right now. And I'll try to pull up some stats for you while I got you here, but the overs have been very good. Maybe the defenses aren't caught up yet. Without the preseason this year, that's probably one thing to take a look at early on. Also, I don't know if there's a lot of value in underdogs. I think generally if a team wins, for example, the Eagles were an underdog on Sunday night, right? Well, yeah, they were getting 7.5 points, but generally don't buy the point. Don't take the points. Just take the team you think is going to win. And in that case, it was the Eagles. So, it's weird. This has been an odd year with COVID. It really is. And I don't want to make excuses, but some certain trends that I always went by, teams go like I didn't think the Cardinals would lose to Carolina this week.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, Teddy Bridgewater is outstanding as an underdog. The week 4 betting trends this week, this was heading into Monday night. Favorites were 5-7-1. Home teams went 2-10-1. Underdogs were 5-8, but overs went 8-4-1. So Normally you either take all the home teams or the underdogs. Well, you went 2-10 as a home team, and you went 5-8 as an underdog, and the favorites went 5-7. So I think Vegas crushed this week, and there were a few upsets if you ask me.
Yeah, they certainly did. And, Joe, you certainly crushed as well. We definitely appreciate you coming on the show and hanging out and spending a few minutes with us tonight.
You got it, my man. Appreciate the time.
All right. Take care, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So that is Joe Murray. You can listen to him on 98.5, the Sports Hub, the Over Under podcast. He has his own podcast, just sitting here. As we open up the phones to callers as well, the number is 617-702-2542. Guys, opening thoughts on Joe.
I mean, I personally listen to his podcast a good amount. Him and Dan Lifshatz know what they're talking about. And if they're saying the overs, it's the way to go. It's kind of crazy this year. The defenses have been so bad. I mean, what are the Cowboys doing? They can't tackle anybody. The overs have been hitting, and this past week, Vegas definitely cleared up. Like you said, all of the home teams didn't do well. The overdogs didn't do well. So it's been interesting. It's a week-by-week basis in the NFL this year.
The reason the overs being consistent doesn't surprise me is because I believe after the lockout season, the same thing happened. A lot of teams that made the playoffs the year before also made the playoffs during that season. It was a weird year in the NFL where there was a lack of turnover. So if you brought back a good portion of your offense, you're going to be miles behind most defenses without a preseason. And I think that was great insight, and I'm happy he was on the show.
Yeah, huge fan of Joe, and it was awesome having him on. I think the one thing I want to harp on is, Hoyer clearly wasn't ready, but I do not see how you can possibly give him another chance after that terrible, lackluster, embarrassing performance he put up this week. I think you got to ride Stidham, even if maybe he's not quite ready. As in, like, he's at his full potential. I mean, I don't think he's going to get there unless he gets real game time. I think you got to play Stidham going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Going into this game, I was like, Hoyer, I kind of was expecting. I was talking to Justin. I was kind of expecting the couple turnovers from Brian Hoyer. He's a veteran who's been in the league for, I think he's 3-13 his last 16 starts, including 0-10. And, I mean, he just isn't getting the job done. He's older. You know what you have with him. Stidham is young. Sure, he had the hip thing, but wasn't that for like 3 days, guys? Why did that take him so far out of consideration, so far out of favor in New England? So I'm totally for playing Stid the Kid. I know Alex going to be happy to hear that. His original prediction, Stidham may actually get a little time this year.
Yeah, I mean, just you brought it up. I did think Stidham, this sort of a situation was going to happen. I thought Cam was going to miss some game time, and Stidham was going to get a chance to show that he can really shine. I think that dime he dropped to Harry, that showed me a lot, and I think that obviously that drop pass from Edelman that resulted in a turnover, that's not on him, and I'm sure we'll get more into Edelman and that drop later, but that deep ball pick, I mean, that was just a shot. You're down 2 touchdowns. You need 2 2-point conversions. I don't blame him for the second pick, but I definitely think that he's got what it takes. And it's crazy to me that they dropped him down below Hoyer when he was the guy coming into camp. I don't understand it.
Hoyer must have pics of Bill naked. I mean, he's got to, right?
It's something. He's got something. I don't know. You guys think anything?
So this was, if we didn't sign Cam Newton after, 86 days of him being a free agent, this is what the Patriots were going to be this year. And, the Pats sold everybody in the NFL, and everybody's saying Jared Stidham, he should have been a first-round pick. Granted, he gets thrown into the first game this year. He's going against the Chiefs. You have to come back against Patrick Mahomes. That's a daunting task. That pass to Harry was a nice pass, but I'm not sold on either of them. And I'll make one comment on Brian Hoyer. He's supposed to be a veteran quarterback, and he's supposed to know this league. How do you not know how many timeouts you have? And how do you know not to throw the ball out of bounds at the end of the first half? That was pathetic. That was the worst thing I've ever seen a Patriots quarterback do since the Bledsoe days.
Those were bad. Okay, so I'm not going to defend that. But the difference between Stidham and Hoyer is nothing. It's a net neutral. Where I'm more concerned is, and Joe Murray touched on it, if our offensive line is working and our running game is hitting, then it doesn't matter who our quarterback is that isn't Cam Newton. We're going to be the same team. With Hoyer or Stidham or some combination with 15 Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler, we're going to win enough games with Bill intact and the rest of the team intact. We need the offensive line to work. We need them to stay healthy, and I think we'll be fine.
But did you think that, like, when they were getting to the red zone with Hoyer, it was almost like they were playing for field goals? Like there was no aggressive game plan. It was just keep running the ball. And he messed it up twice with, the end of the first half, not getting the field goal. And then, did he throw an interception? Or I forget. Oh, he fumbled the ball. Yeah, and it's like, I think if Cam Newton was in the game, they would have been scoring for touchdowns instead of just trying to kick field goals. They were terrified of him making a mistake.
You'd be surprised how many teams we're going to beat kicking field goals and playing good defense with Bill Belichick as your head coach in the NFL.
I mean, I definitely think that a quarterback
Oh, it matters
it's
to
gonna
be a
matter.
Championship contender.
It's going to matter
but to
between
win our
Stidham and
division,
Hoyer. You can't say it's a net neutral. I understand where you're coming from with the rest of the team, but, dude, what Hoyer showed, that's a huge net negative.
Okay, but Stidham wasn't all that much better than Hoyer was.
Let's talk about a net positive. I mean, Damian Harris, we've been waiting to see this guy. He finally see a north to south runner on the Patriots? I mean, we've had so many guys that hesitate at the line, from Lawrence Maroney to whoever it may be. It's nice to see a guy that just wants to kind of hit the hole, even if it's for 2.5 yards in a cloud of smoke, and knowing that he's going to be able to eventually bounce one of those.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis was probably the last one.
Yeah,
where he only went one direction, and that was forward. Damian Harris, and I'd like to take my victory lap because I've loved Damian Harris, and I've trumpeted that on this show before, but I don't think he played that well. I think there was running lanes that were open that he missed. I think he played decent. I think he ran through some open lanes and missed some other open lanes. And I think he's got all the talent in the world. He was the leading rusher at Alabama. His time there when they had other great NFL running backs that are still here. 17 rushes for 100 yards sounds good to me. When you watch the game, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more explosivity from him.
I think like 40 yards of it came on one run.
41 yards, yeah.
And when you're watching him run, to me, personally, up until that run, I didn't see much of a difference between him and Sony Michel. I think the difference is that the guard that we draft out of Michigan, he's making an instant impact. The holes that him and Tooney set up to get those runs for all of our running backs was huge. And that's probably our best draft pick so far this year was that Michigan guard. We took him in like the 5th round. He's enormous. So I guess the last thing I'll say is I was terrified with Skarnecki retiring. The offensive line has been probably our biggest strength so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to say that it has been when you've been able to run the ball like they have, getting over 200 yards in 2 out of the first couple games there, and then obviously doing what they were able to do against the Chiefs and chunk out some yards with Harris. You guys heard it from Joe Murray, but who do you think they should start next weekend? I mean, are we
Stidham.
totally out on Stidham? I mean, totally on board for Stidham. Is anybody taking Hoyer here?
If anyone's taking Hoyer here,
Me.
they're outside of
Me.
their goddamn
Me.
mind. Hoyer
Me.
is
Me.
absolutely trash. He should not be on an NFL field. He shouldn't be on an NFL roster after the performance he put up last weekend. Stidham has a lot of potential. He showed it when he got in the game. I don't know how you, as Bill Belichick, can put Brian Hoyer in the game to do anything but hand the ball off. If you want to win a football game, you're going to go with a guy like Stidham who has potential. He's got scrambling ability. He's got more pocket presence, probably better decision-making than a guy like Hoyer who's – I think he's just locked into a spot on the roster for – the familiarity he has with the offense and obviously the way he's carried himself. But he's not – a winning football player, and you have to move forward with Stidham here.
Stidham has loads of potential. You start Hoyer for one simple reason. He's going to run the game plan that Bill wants at a higher clip than Stidham is.
Oh.
And I understand that he didn't have a great outing. Let's be realistic.
Not
But
great, terrible.
I don't think
Terrible.
Stidham had a good game either. I think Stidham had a bad game, and I don't want to send him out there.
Frank, wouldn't Stidham be a better guy to run this offense with the way that they've had Cam in there, a guy who can move a little bit more?
Here's my
Wouldn't
thing.
he be a better candidate to run what they've been running with Cam?
Don't overestimate his scrambling ability. It's not that great. And secondly, I just don't want to throw him out before he's ready because he's young and confidence is a big thing in young professional athletes. I don't want to throw him out to win a couple more games this year. We are not a Super Bowl contender. Even with Cam Newton, we're really only a Final 6 contender. So why ruin this kid? If you think he's got potential, why potentially risk that starting him for an extra 2 or 3 games this year?
Do you really think that's really bruised him that much? Like you think he can't kind of just come in where he is? Like it's already kind of a broken up situation. It's a messed up year with COVID. You think you really need to preserve this kid and have him come in with a clean run? He can't just come in.
He didn't strike me as ready, and secondarily, you gave Mahomes a year, right? So as long as you're an organization that knows what you're doing, you gave Rodgers a couple of years. So if you are an organization that has a precedent and a pedigree of winning,
shouldn't he
why
at least
would you
be the
rush this
second
kid?
quarterback though?
No.
I agree with you, but he went
No?
to that wedding and he showed a lack of commitment during.
How can you guys?
all
how
right,
can you
so-
guys
all right,
want
so-
Hoyer?
They
all right.
see him in
Guys,
practice every day, and
guys.
he's third on the depth chart.
Talking
Guys,
louder doesn't mean you win,
2
Frank.
things. One, who knows if Cam Newton's not actually playing this weekend? He tested negative the past 3
He's
days.
not playing.
Oh,
this
he's not
weekend.
gonna
He's
play.
not
Okay,
playing.
all right,
The
fine.
NFL
All right,
him out,
all right,
bud.
all
They
right.
have to hold him
Second
out.
thing, Jared Stidham had a worse game than Brian Hoyer did. Jared Stidham threw
No,
one
he did
pass.
not. He did
Those
not have a worse
interceptions,
game.
the Edelman one, that wasn't him. But that
How is
second,
that a worse game?
The
How are you-
second one.
That second one doesn't happen unless that first one happens to Edelman. They're down
What-
by
what are you-
16
what are you talking
points
about?
with 3 minutes
Okay,
left in the
okay,
game. He threw a bad pass, but he was forced into that.
How was
to
he
Edelman.
forced into that?
There's a
Bird was wide open in the end zone. He underthrew the ball.
He did underthrow.
and it wasn't a good.
It came to a point though where Belichick had to make a substitution. Belichick obviously went to Stidham because Hoyer got them down.
Okay, but here's the thing: the first half, it was all running. Then we got down, we had to throw the ball. Obviously, Stidham has a better arm than Hoyer does. He's more of a gunslinger. But to say that Jared Stidham is like gonna someday take over for the Patriots, I have zero faith in that. I haven't seen anything from Jared Stidham that shows that.
What
What
about
have
that
you
one
seen
pass
from
you
Hoyer?
already
What have
gave?
you seen
You
from
already
Hoyer
gave him
that
credit for
shows
one
that-
pass.
Guys, I'm talking about Brian Hoyer for next week. You guys are talking about Stidham eventually taking over this
No,
franchise.
I'm talking about Stidham
I'm
for
saying
next week.
regardless of if you have an opportunity to get in that game, you're putting Stidham in there. He's younger. He has more promise. You haven't seen him as much. I feel like you know what you are with Hoyer. He's like a 35-year-old backup who's 0-10 in his
trash.
last start.
Absolutely
Billy,
trash.
we're playing the Denver Broncos next weekend. The play call is going to be 80% runs and Brian Hoyer's going to have to throw a couple play action passes to move the needle.
You
And he's
honestly,
gonna miss
you
on
honest
every
to God
single one of
are
those
more
passes.
confident with Hoyer.
Billy,
You're more
Billy,
confident with
Billy,
Hoyer than Stidham.
Who is the quarterback for the Broncos? Can you please name him?
Brett Ripien.
It's
Blake Bortles?
Drew Lock's third guy behind.
Exactly.
Ripien.
So we played the Chiefs last night, and we held them. It was 6-3 at half. It should have been 6-6 with our defense. And the Broncos can't move the ball. Their best receiver's out. They don't have a quarterback. Their defensive line's banged up. They have no secondary. Run the ball.
You
Let
have more
Brian Ho-
confidence behind Brian Hoyer than Stidham personally.
with this game plan. I do.
Yes.
Outside of your minds. Outside of your minds. Stidham all the way. This is just neurotic that you guys are even making this argument.
Honestly,
Brian Hoyer might be the worst
I gotta
quarterback
say,
in
I'm
What
the
game
NFL.
did you
shocked.
watch?
Brian
that you
Hoyer
think
is the worst
Stidham is like
quarterback
a
in the NFL right
lock.
now.
What game did you watch?
Are we
I
asking
would
Brian
take-
Hoyer to throw 300 yards next weekend or 100 yards?
I'll
and
let
not make
Stidham
I don't
hand
even-
the
19.
football off.
With the amount of turnovers he had, I don't even trust him to hand off
No,
the ball.
no
I mean,
way.
for God's sake.
No
I mean,
way.
it's just
Terrible.
like, I
As
just
bad as he was, we lost by 2
Yeah,
possessions.
it's before that fumble, he was doing okay. It wasn't like the thing at the end of the first half. That was a big deal. That no quarterback should do that. But after that, and the second half, he was doing fine. Let us down, and then he got sacked. That was a dumb move. But I don't know any throws that Jared Stidham made other than that one touchdown. That was a 10-yard out to Harry, and that was more Harry than it was
He
Stidham.
was in the game for how long? How long was he in the game for, Justin? How much time did he have to show what he's capable of? In a situation where they know that they're airing out the football,
So
give
are we
this
asking Jared
young
Stidham to?
quarterback a chance. It's his second year in the league. He spent the first year behind Brady. This is his chance. He's been training for this. He is absolutely more prepared and more ready for this.
He
than
spent
Brian
his
Hoyer.
second off season being
didn't we
so
hear everything in the offseason last year? Oh, how many guys wanted to back up Stidham? Like, oh, you got like McCourty that wants to back him up. You got Stephon Gilmore that
Yep.
wants to back him up.
Yep.
Where are all these guys now?
So why if he's such promise and he was supposed to be the guy, how did he go from number 1 to number 3?
Thank
It's
you.
not because he got hurt. It's because he came into it thinking he had the job and it wasn't his. And Belichick got
Because
sick.
his backup was Brian Hoyer. I mean,
He
you
was
just
so
assume-
good, Hoyer took
Exactly.
that job. And then Hoyer was so good in taking that job that they signed Cam Newton in July. Like, let's just be realistic. Stidham must have, and I think I know everything, but here's what I do know that's outside of me. They weren't happy with their quarterback situation, and they signed a guy that otherwise they wouldn't have. And I do know that Stidham came in 1, and he left 3 in a preseason where it was kind of hard to lose your job because most of it was virtual.
This is also the Patriots who benched Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl and got their asses.
That was
torn
because you don't
wide
yell
open.
at Bill's
So
son.
let me tell you something. It's not always about who the best player is. That's not always what it's about in New England.
Well, if you yell at Bill's son, it's not what it's about. But I would say most of the time that's what it's about.
Well, guess what, dude? Stidham is a better player
It's really not
than
gonna,
Brian
It's
Hoyer.
not going to matter who the quarterback is next week if we win or lose. I hate
Thank
to
you.
break it to
It's
everybody.
about the offensive line of the
Yes.
running game. It
Yes.
doesn't. You can be quarterback. You're going to go 3 steps and hand the ball off.
I would take the Patriots offense with Jared Stidham over Brian Hoyer to save my life.
I would do the same exact thing toward.
I would have
I'm right
I would have
there with
Edelman
you.
playing quarterback over both of them.
Thank
How
you.
about
I
that?
also would.
Edelman,
I also would.
he'd probably drop the ball in the pocket.
Yeah, so Cam Newton is the guy who has COVID, testing positive for that. And I guess, guys, what do you think about Cam Newton testing positive? What do you think about the fact that they actually played this game? I think the NFL looks like a bunch of greedy pigs not being able to wait off and be able to, hold off for another week, which is kind of in line of what all the health professionals are saying. What do you guys think about this whole Cam Newton nonsense?
F for the Titans. F for Cam Newton. The Titans had something going on there. That's why 8 have tested positive. For Cam Newton, the rest of your organization didn't test positive, and you did. Not a single other staff member or team member tested positive except for you. And I'm not judging you. Whatever it is he was doing, whatever it is that got him COVID, I'm not judging him for doing that. But it sure looks bad that you're the one guy that got it.
It looks pretty freaking bad. I don't know how you can put a positive spin on this. You really can't. I mean, you're talking about this whole season being a business trip, and you put yourself in a position where you're able to get COVID. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe it was his girlfriend. Maybe it was his maid. I don't know how he got it. but to be the only guy that ended up testing positive.
Don't they have
is a
extended
terrible
rosters this
look.
year? Isn't it larger than 53 because of COVID?
I feel like we've heard
I'm not
Belichick
sure.
also talk so much good about Cam. I guarantee you Belichick somewhere in his heart is secretly pissed about this.
Oh, how
Does
could he
anybody
not
else think that?
How could he not? be?
Like, you have to kind of respect everyone's decision with COVID, but I don't think that Bill Belichick is deep down. I wonder if we'll hear the things. I wonder how quickly Cam will be back in the fold and if Belichick is going to continue to praise him the way he has.
I think it could be a blessing in disguise in the long run to give him an extra week off. I mean, did anyone think we were going to win that game, even
Nope.
if Cam Newton was playing?
Nope.
If Jared Stidham was playing, I think we would have.
That's more ridiculous than choosing.
Yeah,
a
exactly.
goaltender,
Is it
just so
more
we're clear.
ridiculous?
Yes.
Is it more ridiculous than
So-
Brian Hoyer
so-
with his dick arm?
So you think that we would lose with Cam Newton, but we would win with Jared Stidham? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think with Cam Newton, we actually probably would have won that game based on the
But
game plan
before the game.
and the way that what
Before the game, did you think the Patriots had a chance if Cam
with
Newton
Cam
was
Newton.
playing?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I
think we
did
have a
not.
chance against anyone with Cam
They
Newton
just
after what we did with
steamrolled the
You
Ravens
did
last
not
weekend.
because you're a pessimistic person.
What we did with the Seahawks showed me that this team can compete with anyone. We have
After
a
one game showed you
that we can compete with anyone in the NFL right now. Yeah, the Seahawks are the best team in the NFL, and we almost took them.
The scary
took 'em out.
positive
we
is
were
that-
we were a goal line stand away from taking the Seahawks out.
The scary positive is that with Cam Newton, we are a goal line stand away from beating Seattle, and that without Cam Newton, we're 2 possessions and 3 turnovers on offense away from beating the Chiefs. And you mentioned it, 3 straight games we've faced the Chiefs, and 3 straight games they haven't scored a touchdown in the first half. I mean, there are some good takeaways from an otherwise ugly game.
Yeah, one of which I think is Damian Harris played great. I think you were
He played
completely
good.
underselling his performance.
played
If you
good.
average 5.7 yards per carry, and
How many
you
did
know,
you average before contact?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
He found the holes. He hit them hard.
Sometimes.
And you know what? He's going to work in this offense, and I think he's going to be a very good player for us.
So Damian Harris looked okay. I still think our best running back's Rex Burkhead. When Rex
I
Burkhead
agree-
runs,
I agree
he
with
gets
you.
5 yards to carry every single time.
He's also exciting.
He's our most multi-dimensional running back.
Exactly.
and he also
For
gets
sure.
hurt the most too. Is one of the that's the only
Yep.
unfortunate thing is that he runs so well. He's so versatile, and he does things in both the passing, running game, and special teams. But he just gets hurt like too much. So
Well, James White's back. now,
Damian
too.
Harris and James White will take us home. Don't
Yeah,
you worry
James
about
White
it.
Yeah.
just 2 games.
I'm ready to ride Damian Harris. I think it looks
Yes.
good. Let's keep. They were ready to. I like the fact that they were ready to feed him so much in his first game of action.
He'll be extremely good. Don't oversell what he did last game, though. He'll be very good. That wasn't a good performance.
It wasn't a great performance, but at the end of the day, 100 yards is 100
They
yards.
were also missing their best defensive tackle last night. Clark, Chris Jones.
Chris Jones.
Yeah, he didn't play. That I think had a lot to do with it as well. But he looked
He
okay.
could have lined up offsides. You don't know.
No, that's the guy. He got
That's
traded
the other
already.
guy, Frank Clark, or what's his name?
D Ford.
D Ford. Yes.
So while we continue talking about the Pats, how about the rumors of Julio Jones to the Pats this week, guys?
Oh,
it would
God.
never happen, but let's just make it seem like let's play pretend and talk about the fact if Julio Jones joined this team, do you think that makes the Pats contenders?
I think we're contenders already, but with Julio, I think we actually might turn into a Super Bowl favorite. I think would be a top 3 team in the league in Super Bowl betting if the Pats got Julio Jones, and you'd be crazy to think otherwise. N'Keal Harry's a perfect number 2. We've got Edelman in the slot. And then you put Julio on the outside, Demir Bird to stretch the field. Those are 4 receivers that work very, very well together, and the rest of the offense would as well.
I think you're overselling the Pats receivers just a bit. I think Harry is a number 3 at best at this point, and Bird is what he is. But I agree that if you get Julio Jones, I don't think you're a Super Bowl contender, but I think you have a chance of making it to the AFC Championship game. And a contender is the Final Four. And the way we've played the Chiefs over the years, I'm not saying we're going to beat them, but the Ravens do not look nearly as good as they have in the past. And I think the Bills are a bigger threat than the Ravens are at this point.
I think getting Julio Jones brings us up a notch. Let's be realistic. But not to throw water on the parade here, but This is Calvin Johnson. This is Larry Fitzgerald. This is several names beforehand.
He also got hurt last night too.
Yeah,
again.
well, besides that, we're not getting Julio Jones.
No, it's not happening.
Because why would you give up Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage? You have a young nucleus of only wide receivers. The rest of your team is
Julio's
trash.
not young.
You're
though.
0-4.
If you trade away Julio,
You're
and
gonna
you can
blow
get a
the-
first round.
You got to
They're
blow
gonna fire
that
their
team.
coach before
They got to
they
blow
give us
that team
Julio
up.
Jones.
Yeah,
Dan
they-
Quinn
they
is.
should
See
blow
you
it up.
later. He's
They
going to be
should
the
blow
next
it up.
coach to go.
But to answer your question as asked, Julio Jones on this current incarnation of the Patriots team takes us up a notch. I said we were top 6. We're top 4, top 2. I still don't think we're going to win, but if the clarification is contender, we are that.
I say it takes us up a notch, but I just don't see it with Cam. I mean, I think it makes us a bit deeper, but I just still don't quite see it with Cam. I know he had the game against the Seahawks, but I think the game where he threw his last game where he threw 162 yards, throws a touchdown, throws a pick. I think that's more of the Cam Newton that you're going to see. And, I think some of this shine is going to wear off Cam. I don't know what you guys think, but I think he's taken too many hits, and I don't really trust that arm or the shoulder. And, I just think people are kind of making a lot out of this. Like, some people have said that, any quarterback could have won these games or whatever. And I feel like, that might be the case. I don't see it with Cam and his throwing ability. And I don't know how good he's going to – that connection's going to be.
His arms look great. His arms look so great so far. What connection?
The connection of him and Julio, like, is he even going to – I just don't see him necessarily being able to throw to Julio as much. And
Anybody can throw to Julio.
So there's one little grain of hope that I have here, and that's who the GM of the Falcons is. Thomas Dimitroff, New England Ties. We actually have a chance of working out a deal if they are going to blow it up and the Pats are willing to give up a first-round pick. If I'm the Falcons, I mean, I say whatever. We're getting rid of Dan Quinn. We got to retool the offense around Calvin Ridley. Why not make it happen? If it happens, I think Cam's arm has looked pretty damn good so far this season. I think he could throw some good balls to
I don't
Julio
even
Jones,
think you
who
need to
anyone
give up a
can throw
first-round pick to get Julio Jones.
If it's a second and a
You're
fourth,
taking his
woo.
you're taking his salary, and he is hurt right now. I don't think a first. I think maybe a second and a fifth, maybe like a third and a fourth. But I keep Bill, you keep saying that you don't believe in Cam. We at halftime yesterday, it was 6-3 against supposedly the best team in football with Brian Hoyer at quarterback. This is a team sport. This isn't like we're relying on Brady on everything. This team is all about running the ball 80% of the time. Our offensive line is holding up and doing great. But Cam Newton, game by game, it's going to change the game plan. The game against the Raiders, it was run the ball. The game against the Seahawks, it was pass the ball. It's been like that with Brady for years.
But can't anybody pass on the Seahawks? They're giving up friggin' 400 yards a game. That's
Are they
the thing.
4-0?
Hold on. The answer is yes. Anybody can pass on the Seahawks. Anybody
Yes.
can run on the Chiefs. That's why I wasn't all that impressed with Damian Harris. Here's my point on the Julio Jones things. If you're Thomas Dimitroff, right, and Belichick told you at the draft, you don't need to draft Julio Jones. You can draft David frickin' Baldwin in the 4th round, and they're going to give you the same amount of production. If you get anything of value in return, that's a win. If you give him 2 seconds and a third, or however Bill's going to do it, whatever he trades for Julio Jones will get traded into 17 picks into oblivion, just like the Garoppolo trade. And any trade that might go back, that might not be looked favorably on Bill, is going to be traded into oblivion. But Julio on this team takes us up a notch, and any value in return is they got nothing for Roddy White at the end of his career. And I'm not saying Julio Jones is there yet. But it would benefit them to get something for him before he's done.
Keep in mind, we also have $24 million in cap room right now, which is probably more than any other team in the NFL. If I'm not
when's the last
mistaken.
time
So,
they've spent it, though?
I mean,
Well, next year
usually
we-
they're right up against the cap, but this is the year we're probably going to actually make a move.
We have
that
like $100
gets us
million
in position
next year.
for a championship. We're going to be buyers this year. Why do you think we've got $24 million in cap
That's why I'm
space?
saying
Because
you
people
don't,
opted out.
you don't have to give up a first-round pick for him because you're taking
Belichick
on his
pulled the
salary.
strings.
He just signed a massive contract like 2 years ago.
Yeah, isn't it like a 2-year deal though, or something like that?
For
Isn't
Julio?
it like a 2-year like?
For Julio.
Yeah, I think
He's-
it's like a
he's
2-year
getting paid like-
$44 million
Yeah.
deal or
It
something.
was an
like that.
extension. It
He's
wasn't.
getting
it
paid like
wasn't
$15
a
million a
full-year
year or
contract.
$13 million a year or something like that.
I think he's getting paid like 22. I could
No,
have sworn he
no,
signed
no,
like a
no.
2-year like $44 million extension or something.
$11.4 million in 2020. I think there's probably bonuses added on to that, though.
All right. Well,
That number's got to be low.
Yeah, that number's definitely low.
4
There's no way he could
years.
be making $11 million a year.
Potential outs 2020 salary.
keep
So
that off
4
the edge of the
years,
cabinet.
$75 million. So a little bit more than what I said. So what's that turn
17?
into? Yeah, $17 million a year.
There you
Plenty
go.
of room for us at 24 mil.
Well, you'd need him and Gilmore. You'd have two of the highest paid players in their position at positions that Bill doesn't typically pay. So it'd be interesting to see. I'd love to see it. I don't think I'm going to get to see it.
Well, Bill's paying everybody these days. I mean, he paid Pat Chung, and he was going to retire. I
Yes.
mean, this is chill Bill. You don't know who he's going to sign these days.
Versatile utility linebackers and long snappers and punters and
We spend the most amount of money in special teams and guards.
and gunners and interior linemen and you name it. That's what we do.
And that's why we have the best special teams every single year.
No, it is not. For the record, no, it is not. If we signed nobody to no money and just let Bill coach him up, we'd still have a top 5 special teams.
How many times in the playoffs?
We don't need to pay Matthew Slater $6 million a year to be a gunner to have a highly rated special
I
teams.
agree with you, but how many times in the playoffs over this 20-year dynasty did special teams make a key play in a game to
A
win
lot.
a game for us?
Lots.
A lot.
A lot of
The
that. A
answer's
lot of
lots.
that. A lot of that's
Several.
A lot
coaching.
of time.
But Bill believes on not just offense and defense, but special teams is important. So, I mean, I think he pays too much for Matt Slater. I think he pays too much for a lot of players. But
Bolden.
I'm not going to disagree with what he does. He's the best, greatest coach of all time.
Oh, Brandon Bolden makes like $800K. They're not paying too much.
We
for
don't
him.
have a show if we don't second guess Bill Belichick, for the record.
I'm just
I don't
sa-
care who you are.
No,
I
we
second
definitely
BS
have
Bill
to-
Belichick for starting Brian
I second-
freaking Hoyer.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
If-
You're going to
if-
second guess him next week if he starts
next
Stidham this
weekend,
week.
if he starts Hoyer, I will second guess him on that.
Oh yeah.
I'll second guess him more for
Oh, yeah.
using those 3 timeouts in the first half at the end for no freaking reason.
what the fuck?
Yeah, like why? We had 36 seconds left. We had no timeouts. It was like, what are you doing? Like it just set us up for failure, and he screwed up the timeouts the game before that. So I do hate on Belichick sometimes too.
Well, it's good that we're all spreading the hate around here, and Belichick gets a
what we
slice.
do best.
So, guys, another Bill we should talk about gets fired. Bill O'Brien gets
Finally.
canned from the Texans. Man, if that wasn't, that was coming from a mile away. It felt like. Yeah, that should have been earlier. And his failures as a GM really kind of underscore his tenure there. I mean, a guy that really couldn't get the most out of a team. And they made it to the playoffs, won their division, I think 3-4 times, but a lot of failure in the playoffs, and finally Bill O'Brien is out in Houston, and 73-year-old Romeo Crennel, boys, will be taking over the head coaching duties there.
Awesome.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Matt Schaub is a loser. Their varsity jackets were losers. J.J. Watt has been irrelevant in nearly every game we've ever played against him. That team is full of losers. And Bill O'Brien was just the latest loser to go there and be awful. That team should be so much better than they are right now. Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins is the nucleus you should be able to build behind for years. And they built nothing behind it. And I get it. Cushing's been injured. Watt's been injured. Clowney's been injured. It's not to say they didn't have a lot of talented guys or try really hard. They signed Matthew in free agency. They've not been inept.
Armchair GMs rejoice. I think when I was like 11 years old and I was playing Madden, I could have constructed a better roster for the Texans than Bill O'Brien has. He has been the worst GM probably in the entire NFL over the past 3 or 4, realistically like two or three seasons. As a coach, he's a decent coach. I think he's a borderline like lower than average coach. I'm saying he's not the worst coach in the entire world, but as a GM, he has crippled that franchise, and it's going to take them years to recover from the irreparable damage he's caused.
So the Texans, those years, they're making the playoffs like Matt Schaub at quarterback, Brian Hoyer
TJ
at quarterback.
Yates.
So look at that division back then. Peyton Manning was long gone. It was the crappy Colts, the crappy Titans, and the crappy Jaguars. They could get in the playoffs 8-8 every single year, and they lost every single year in the division.
Not a
round.
believer in David Garrard or Vince Young.
But like it was a joke. Like everyone says, the AFC East is a joke. For a 5-year period, that division was a disaster. The Colts were trying to tank to get Andrew Luck. Then Andrew Luck gets hurt. I mean, that division was a joke. I agree. An incoming coach or GM what are you inheriting? You're inheriting Deshaun Watson and nothing else. Because everybody else is on one-year deals. You have Larry Tunsil at left tackle. He's a good tackle, but you have nothing. Watts, at the end of his career, that team has nothing.
You don't have your picks. You just don't have much going for you. You got to go broke. You got to bring in Antonio Brown. You got to bring in Earl Thomas. You just got to try to win now and figure it out the rest later.
Well, Earl Thomas came in there, and they decided not to sign him, which was surprising.
Because Bill O'Brien's stupid.
Bill O'Brien probably – I don't know what he did to scare him away, but, I mean, I feel like that guy's looking for a job with any team after the rumors that have been out about him.
I was just going to say, when did Bill O'Brien get all these credentials to be a head coach? Like, he was the offensive coordinator for 1 year with Brady. Then he goes to Penn State. He had 2 decent years,
He took
good
over
years.
after something terrible.
Joe Paterno, okay, he did that. But then he goes to the Texans and coaches this somewhat average football team. They get to the playoffs because of a crappy division. And then the owner lets him become the GM. Like, what credentials does he actually have? Oh, because he's under the Belichick tree. Well, that hasn't really worked out for 95% of the coaches that have come from the Belichick tree.
If you're not Scott Pioli or Thomas Dimitroff, who has it worked for?
I think that the Miami Dolphins coach is going to – I think that
Flores?
French –
I do too,
Yeah, I
but they're
think
also
Flores will
not
be
as
good
good
too.
this year as I thought they'd be. I agree with that
Agreed,
point
but they have
overall.
Ryan Fitzpatrick
Tua's not
as their
playing.
quarterback.
You're right.
They have a lot of picks too.
You're right. I hope they lose. I hope Tua doesn't play all year.
Yeah, exactly.
That dude had a hip injury. Hey, I don't want to Isaiah Thomas that man. Let him sit all year. He's an undersized quarterback.
They also don't have an offensive line, so let him sit.
That's my point. But I do think Brian Flores is going to be good. But stunning when you look at Parcells' coaching tree versus Belichick's coaching tree and the lack of success under Belichick's.
Do you think that says anything about Belichick, or does that mean that he's such a genius?
It says that his cheating means more than his assistance. He is already a genius. No need to go there. But it means that illegal videotaping, it means it has more to do with his schemes than Cornell does. Or Charlie Weiss does.
Yeah, the biggest failure for all these coaches is they learn under Belichick, and then they just try to incorporate the Patriot way to these organizations. If you don't have buy-in from the very top, say the quarterback, the best players, it's not going to work. Patricia, everybody hates him in Detroit.
Everybody hated him.
Yeah, and same thing with...
It's because he made him sprint in the summer,
while he's on his freaking cart because he's too fat to walk around.
Yeah, exactly.
It just doesn't work.
He's too fat to shave. I mean...
It worked here for so long because Brady bought in. And, especially the key defensive guys, when you got here, Ty Law, McGinnis, they all bought in. And then year after year, these young guys come in. They live up to
those guys were here
way.
before Bill, but they bought into Parcells, and they bought into Carroll.
Yeah,
they had bought into winning before Bill got here.
Well, Parcells gave Belichick the keys, like the draft picks for the defensive players. He inherited a great defense.
Yeah, but Carroll took him to the playoffs after Parcells.
He went 8-8. Patriots went 8-8.
Carroll made it to the playoffs.
I'm pretty sure he didn't. He only lasted 1 year.
Give me Google.
No, he lasted 2 years or something. 2 or 3. Brian's saying. Brian Murphy producing the show, throwing up a couple fingers. And if you want to call in, again, the number is 617-702-2542. That's going to do it for our Pats coverage, as we're still going to get into a little bit more NFL. Can you believe it? We have more. But before that, we have a word from our sponsors. Alex, hit him with it.
Sure. Guru Club. Today's show is sponsored by the Guru Club. If you have an Instagram account and you like to shop, check out their website, guru.club, not .com, .club, and find brands that will give you cash back on products you'll absolutely love. Just for posting a story on your Instagram and tagging the brand, you can find brands like Snow Teeth Whitening, Slam, the basketball magazine, iSlide, the sandal company, and more. Guru.club, shop, share, and get paid.
All right, sounds easy enough. Sounds pretty cool. Justin was just kind of talking about the buy-in from Tom Brady, and I want to get to that. Tom Brady has his best passing game as a Buck. Throws 5 TDs to 5 different guys. First time he's ever done that. First time he's ever thrown for 5 TDs without a guy named Randy Moss or throwing to a touchdown to Rob Gronkowski. So, spreading the ball around and spreading it around to not who you would think. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans sitting out in that game. And, Tom Brady looking pretty good in that game. Guys, who's had a better quarter of this season so far? Is it Brady or is it Belichick? Brady with his 3-1, kind of leading the NFC, and Belichick hanging in there 2-2, losing Brady. Whose performance do you think has been better through a quarter of the season?
Unfortunately, I think it's been Tom's. I'm a big detractor at everything Tom Brady's done down there. I think Gronk's looked old. I think it was perfect that he went down there. I think Arians is a loser. I think it's perfect he went down there.
Hold that thought, Frankie. We got one ringing through. Hi, you're live on Open Season. Who do we got?
Yo, it's Whitey from Queens.
Whitey, my man. How you doing tonight?
Doing well. Watching the Yankees. There's going to be another tight matchup.
Oh yeah, we're talking tons about them tonight. We
Yeah,
haven't
I
even
actually
hit.
wanted to-
We haven't even hit
I actually
MLB.
wanted to-
Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't even calling about the Yankees. I was actually calling because you guys were talking about Bill Belichick's coaching tree
Yep.
and how awful it is, which is weird because everyone says Belichick is the best coach of all time. But you know,
He's
the
just
classic
not the
quote,
best at teaching others how to coach.
Yeah, he's not. Like being next to greatness does not equal greatness. Like it's like having like Bill Gates and a bunch of like not as smart people. You know, they're not going to be as successful as Bill Gates. But what's crazy is, are you guys aware of the Andy Reid coaching tree and
Oh, yeah,
how
that's him.
it's just the complete opposite of Belichick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's because he gives them the hookup to Wendy's. You know, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I feel like. What do you think it is, Whitey? What do you think that it means that Belichick hasn't had a good coaching tree?
Maybe he's just some like evil guy. Like I'm going to retain the true brilliance and not share it with my staff, and just because it's really, really crazy. I'm just going to list off Andy Reid's disciples, and you're just going to see like he's had the biggest impact on coaching in the NFL in history.
Bigger than Walsh?
Do you realize that
Dude.
Andy Reid is part of another coaching tree with Mike Holmgren, who he
That's
himself
the best coaching
is a
tree.
Hall
Yeah.
of yes.
Okay, well then he's the best. But like in today's NFL, let me just list off some names. It'll blow your mind because so many of these guys have Super Bowls. We got John Harbaugh.
Yep.
We got Doug Peterson. He's got a ring.
Yep.
Ron Rivera. He's been to a Super Bowl. Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott literally resurrected the Bills. Do you realize how significant that is? The Bills have been pathetic for the last ever since the 90s when they lost all those Super Bowls. Sean McDermott completely it's crazy. It's crazy what he's done for Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen, if he threw the ball into the water, he couldn't even hit the water. You know what the expression is?
Yeah. If he threw a grape at the ocean, yeah.
Yeah, you know the expression. Like Josh Allen literally is like the most inaccurate quarterback I've ever seen, and this year he's hitting dimes. Like he's literally tied with Mahomes for passing stats this year, and he's more of like a running quarterback.
Well, is this a call about Sean McDermott or Bill Belichick? It sounds like you're pretty into McDermott over there.
You went from
But-
coaching tree to just McDermott.
Let me also go. There's one other, Matt Nagy, who's like,
oh yeah,
he made Trubisky like, okay, we all know Trubisky's trash.
he's working with nothing at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's crazy.
it's a pretty good coaching tree.
Parcells has a good coaching tree as well. Landry has a good coaching tree. I mean, there's certain guys. The only thing that's definitive is that Bill has a bad one.
Which one? All of them.
Belichick. Parcells is a good one.
Oh,
Bill
yeah.
Belichick has a bad coaching tree.
And I think it worked for Belichick when he got here, too, because he had the credentials of coaching those defensive teams on the Giants. And when he was in Cleveland before he got fired, like that team was actually pretty good.
Yep.
And then he went back to be under Parcells with the
That
Jets.
Ravens team that he left was also
Yeah,
pretty good.
I mean, he had like these other coaches that go to these teams. They have no credentials other than just being under Belichick, and none of them are offensive coaches. They're all defensive coaches. which
Weiss
is-
got paid more twice to not coach a team than to continue coaching that team.
yeah.
McDaniels cheated and got off a plane the next time that he was a head coaching prospect. Crennel was bad. The coach Rob Ryan was bad. Name me a guy who was good when he left. Mangini had one good season in Cleveland. With New York, he was bad too.
Yeah, well, I think once he told everyone about the cheating, that was his end.
He had a whistleblowing
Mancini.
effect.
Oh yeah, that ended him real quick. He likes being an analyst.
Another thing too, none of these guys are personable people. Like all the guys that Whitey's listing off are team guys gravitate towards.
Do we
those
count
coaches.
Saban as a success story from Bill's coaching tree?
I mean that works, yeah.
I mean, he's
didn't
one of
really-
the best college coaches of all time. Didn't work in the NFL worth a damn, but he's one of the best college coaches of all time.
If he took Drew
I'm
Brees
not
over
ca-
Culpepper,
I'm
it
not
could have been a
counting
different
it.
story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You said you're not counting
He
it?
was going to rebuild. Well, I just don't think we can take college into this debate. I mean, personally, but I think it's a different thing to do it in college versus doing it in the NFL.
I agree.
It also helps when you get the best players every year.
Hey, it doesn't help Jim
it's really
Harbaugh.
crazy.
So Whitey, you were talking about Josh Allen. I know you're following him closely. Him and Stephon Diggs have been kind of hooking up for some. Josh Allen has been really lights out this year. You think that's all
He's been
just
unbelievable.
You think that's coaching, or what do you think that is?
I would say it's a combination of both. I mean, let's contrast Josh Allen with Sam Darnold, right? Like, most people thought Sam Darnold was the better prospect, but he goes into a Jets organization without strong coaching. It's basically just a dumpster fire. And Darnold is throwing picks that no third-year quarterback prospect should be throwing. And Josh Allen, he's like grown each year, whereas Darnold has kind of been flat. Like, he's shown flashes first year, second year, third year, but it's just been mired in just an awful organization. And McDermott really just solidified that organization. Like, he's just a great coach. Like, Josh Allen has grown every year. He's literally a fantasy football MVP this year. He's my quarterback. Everyone laughed at me because he was one of my keepers this year, but it's been paying off. Somehow I'm 2-2 with a bunch of rookie running backs who aren't even seeing the field.
Josh Allen's got big kahunas.
How
right?
much
Sam
was
Darnold looks like he's terrified.
Yeah, because it just goes to show you the difference in
We got
coaching
another one
between
ringing.
McDermott
We
and
got
Gates.
another one ringing through, Whitey. We appreciate you calling us up tonight. Hi, you're live on Open Season. Who do we got?
Hey, got Sean here for talking Lakers Heat.
Awesome.
Hey there, Sean.
let's
What do you want to
go.
say about the Lakers and Heat?
Oh man, I think Lakers are rolling tonight, man. I think they're gonna absolutely crush the Heat.
You don't think they're in trouble?
No,
You're not
Yeah.
worried about Bam coming back and Dragic coming back tonight?
no. I mean, I look at it this way, right? It's like the great players, they really step up. You have LeBron, who's going to be pissed. I think AD is going to really step up. They're going to be able to, switch, which they didn't in game, the third game, really double team Butler. I think they're going to change the strategy. They're really kind of gang up on him. And, I mean, you look at it, too, it's just like betting-wise, it's, the 3 games that the Heat lost, the next they all won, and they're 2-1 against the spread. If that's something you're interested in. But I just see them rolling in this pretty heavily. I think it might be over in 5, maybe 6. But
You
who
aren't
knows?
worried. You aren't worried about Bam Adebayo coming back. You aren't worried that the Heat just beat them without Bam and Goran Dragic at all.
No, I mean, it's like you throw up a bogey every now and again. Like it happens, right? That's why you play the game. But I think there's going to be regression back to the mean in this game. I really do.
Here's my concern. Anthony Davis is a big unknown, and I haven't heard anybody say this yet. And I call the Lakers in 5 too, and I'm not wavering from that. I think they're going in 5. But I know what LeBron's going to bring tonight. I have no idea what Anthony Davis is going to bring. I hope he brings 30 and 10, but I'm not convinced of that because he has a little bit of shrinkage to him. And we know Jimmy Butler's all nails, so that doesn't concern you at all?
No, I think it's just, again, it's, you're right with AD, but I think, like I said, it's aggressive back to the mean. I think they're going to really pressure Butler tonight the way that they did in the last game. And I think LeBron is just, you put a little heat in that guy's belly, and he's bound to go off. So,
Yeah, Sean,
I
everybody's
have-
giving you a tough time. I gotta say, I agree with you. I mean, I think the Lakers. I called them the Lakers in 6 personally, and I think it still might go 6. But I love LeBron. I love LeBron coming back tonight. He's been averaging a triple-double in this series. I think he's going to continue to do that. We saw Anthony Davis put up 15 and 5. Like Frank talked about, he's been averaging closer to 30 and 10. I expect that I know it's an unknown, but I think Anthony Davis is going to come back and do well. And that defense, they've got guys like Rondo, Dwight Howard playing great basketball. I just really like the Lakers. I think they offer too much of a talent mismatch with the Heat.
I think not having Bam last game was actually a good thing for the Heat. And what I mean by that is, Kelly Olynyk sucks, right? We all can agree with that. But he's not going down in the paint. He's sitting at the 3-point line.
It opened things
It
up
opened
for
things
Jimmy.
exactly. It opened things up for Jimmy, and that's in all the picks they were setting to get hero shots. That was one game, right? If Bam didn't play tonight, the Lakers would have figured it out. They're going to win regardless. But I think that had a lot to do with it. Bam is a guy that sits in the paint, sets picks, but he's not going to the 3-point line. And I don't know, I think it had something to do with Anthony Davis having to chase Kelly Olynyk at the 3-point line a lot.
That team needs Bam. That team absolutely needs
I
Bam.
agree with you, but
Sean's still on the line?
He is.
Sean, I know you're picking the Lakers. What do you think about the over-under?
If I had to pick, right, if in a perfect world, I'd probably tease the under up. But if I had to, someone hold a gun to my head, the under where it is now, I'd be over under. I'd take the under.
You think lockdown defense tonight?
I think where it is, like I said, obviously Butler crushing it last game with like 40 points. I think the Lakers kind of adjust, figure it out, and kind of the little points come off the board. I also believe in the series so far, I believe it's 2-3 under versus over, and I think that trend continues.
Sean, who's your Finals MVP?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think you kind of gotta, if the Lakers do take it in 5, I think you got to give it to LeBron. If anything crazy goes on and happens in these next couple games and stuff really starts swinging the Heat's way, and I'm totally off base and wrong, who knows who the hero is going to be? People will look towards Butler on the Heat, but who the heck knows? That's why they play the games, right? We're only 3 games in, so it could be, if it's a long series, it could be different.
Sean, I'm surprised you didn't say Caruso. That guy's tearing it up.
The answer is LeBron.
Of course,
It's definitely LeBron.
LeBron.
We're a talk
I'd like
show,
to
so
see AD
we'd
get it,
like
though.
to go somewhere else with that.
No,
but
no,
it's got to be LeBron.
I think
yeah.
AD has a chance at Finals MVP. I think that outside of that last game, you could argue he's been better than LeBron.
Are you aware
I
that
would say
Finals?
I would say LeBron's basically been putting up a triple-double every game, and AD kind of had some shrinkage in the last
He's
game.
just so
Was 50
dominant, though. Outside of
AD
the last game,
averages
he was
is-
dominant in 1 and 2. If he comes back with a dominant performance in Game 4, I think you have a serious
He needs
conversation
4 and
there.
5.
LeBron's putting up 30-point triple-doubles. I think he needs I think he needs it to go like 7 games or something like that in order for AD to win. Like, I think there would have to be a turn in the playoffs where Anthony Davis really bails out LeBron or something like that. I think otherwise the NBA is going to ride LeBron. I think.
They certainly want to. Seems like they want to.
Well, hey Sean.
Hey guys, I'm curious. Tordai, where are you putting your money tonight? Putting on the Heat or the Lakers?
I don't know. I'm starting. You might have turned me. I'm thinking kind of the Lakers might be the move.
What is this? What's the spread?
300. What is it? Minus 330, Sean?
Well, the thing is interesting. Early in the day, right, the Lakers were minus 300. At some books, they were sub 300. There's been late line moves, especially money line has heavily gone to the Lakers. Some books now have Lakers minus 380. Kind of like the mean around them seems around like 350. You can go as low as DraftKings right now has minus 330, but there's been some big influx, I think, on public money going towards the Lakers tonight. So if you're sharp, if you like the Heat, jump in.
Well, hey, we definitely appreciate you jumping in tonight and calling the program, Sean.
Thanks, brother.
Definitely appreciate it. You're a great call, so call us back anytime. But
Absolutely.
appreciate you
it, guys.
ringing
Have a
in.
good
And
night.
all right, take care.
Thanks, Sean.
So great stuff out of Sean. He really knows his stuff with those lines and everything like that. He was all on top of it with teasing, and I don't even know exactly. I got to be honest. I don't. You can see it as I don't gamble as much. So the whole teasing the under and.
I do. It's good for
I
the
do.
soul.
That's some good
It's
stuff.
good for the
you guys know
soul.
exactly what he's talking about. Yeah.
I sure do.
Well, let's see. On that note, guys, who do you think is going to take the series? Anybody want to go for the Heat?
I don't think the
Well,
Heat
you
are
should
taking
direct that
it.
at Justin.
Yeah.
The
Call
NBA
the
is
Heat.
not allowing the Heat to take this series, even if they win this game. I think the NBA could rig this game for the Heat. The refs will give the touch fouls to the Heat this game, just so that they can get their ratings up, which have been atrocious. 1/3 of the viewership that they had last year. I don't think that the NBA will allow this to end with anything but a Lakers championship, and we've seen it throughout the playoffs, the bias and the officiating. So
I took the Heat before Dragic got hurt and before Bam got hurt.
Boo.
I think Dragic is a difference maker,
Boo.
and I also wanted to be different. We can't all say the same damn thing.
Excuse maker.
Oh, I'm not a
Thank
excuse
you.
maker.
Thank you, apologist over there. Look, it's the Heat, and it's the Heat because LeBron. Anthony Davis, even averaging his 30 and 10, averages the same points per minute with LeBron on the court as he does without LeBron on the court. The difference is his plus minus with and without LeBron is miles apart. LeBron is the system with which every team he's ever been on runs through.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I needed to get that
Let's
point
go
back
Heat.
across, and that's why the Lakers are going to win. They have the best player. The best player in the NBA wins, I don't know, 90% of the time.
Not in Game 3.
Or definitely,
Jimmy Butler was.
definitely 2 out of the top 5, I would say, also, is what the Lakers really bring.
Yeah, but Anthony Davis doesn't have more balls than Jimmy Butler. The balls scale is
Oh, that's for
LeBron
sure.
and Butler 1 and 2.
To think we could have had Jimmy Butler over Gordon Hayward, the balls
To
difference
think we
between
could have
those
had
two.
Jimmy Butler instead of a lot of people, Jaylen Brown. To think we could have had Kawhi and Jason Tatum. I'd rather not talk about all the what-ifs.
I think Jalen Brown
Danny
could have
never
been.
wanted to make the
I
move.
was going
We
to the
have
Lakers.
Danny
Shut
never
your
wanted to
mouth.
make the
We
move
have-
for Butler. He
Okay.
got
Look,
too
we have
shy.
June shows for this. All right, let's save this
Wait,
for June shows when the
first off,
sports are dead.
Jalen Brown can be Jimmy Butler. He's 4 years into
I
the
agree
league.
with you for the record.
So long term, I don't see how that's.
I
a
don't
big
think
deal.
he has the balls, though.
Jalen Brown.
You know what I don't
Jalen
think?
has the balls.
I don't think any of our young guys have balls.
Tatum
That's the
doesn't
sad
have
thing.
balls. Jalen Brown does big balls.
I don't
You
think
don't think that Tatum will ever have them?
I do, because I also, if I wasn't 4, if I was who I am now when Kobe shot those air balls, I would have thought, no, I watched this guy at Lower Merion. This guy was shooting from 45 feet away at 40% against other 17-year-olds because he knew what he was in the NBA. I think Jason Tatum is a goddamn stud. I'm not sure that he has the winning quotient, but I'm not willing to write him off when he has as much talent as he does.
I agree with you. One thing I saw of Jason Tatum the entire year that we didn't see in years past is his complaining to the refs the entire game, every single game.
That's a league thing, though.
Yeah, but he hasn't earned that right to do that yet.
Sure, but that's a league thing.
Get to the finals first, then you can do it.
I don't think. I mean, Kelly Olynyk complains to the ref. Has he been to the finals?
Well, then the ref just says, "Go sit back on the bench." You hit me."
Sure, but that's
The
every
ref
player.
says, "Who are you?"
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Marcus Smart. Every
Marcus
player
Smart
in the
sucks,
league.
too.
Thank you. I agree.
All
But
right.
every player
I
in
don't
the
see
league, whether
Jalen
they
Brown
suck
ever
or not.
arguing. That's because he doesn't get the ball.
That's because Jalen's smart. I mean, he's a heady player. He's got some time. Maybe he just knows it's worthless to argue with the refs. They should all learn that.
Yeah, unless you're Tim Duncan, for some strange pseudo philosophical reason, Tim Duncan seemed to have an effect. Every other player, like if you're Rasheed Wallace and you look at a ref, technical.
Tim Duncan doesn't also speak on the court, so it's a little different.
Yeah, that was great when Ron Artest, if he would even look at a ref also, Frank.
Technical.
Remember that year that he had like how many, and Rasheed Wallace, that year that he had 42 techs, that was like one of my favorite years.
You gotta. It makes me upset because I love '90s basketball where it was just a bully game, and I love some of these players who were traditionally like bad guys. Like Damon Stoudemire, when he was good in the NBA, is tremendously entertaining, but he's a bad guy.
He got arrested for weed every offseason.
Sure,
didn't
he did.
Back when it was bad.
Sure he did. And it was entertaining. Allen Iverson never showing up for practice, not a problem to me. I like talent in the NBA, so I put up with these things. No other league, but this league, sure.
Well, on that, and it seems like every week, it's always Frankie kind of going out with the clock. He's always got like a timely rant as the show winds down.
I want the ball in my
It's always
hands.
so perfect. And with that, that's going to do it for us here at Open Season. For Billy, Justin, Frank, and Alex, we are going to sign out, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in here. I'm just not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate you, Ryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James
the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.